Welcome back to my channel. I'm Elisa, and this is Ann on the Mind Goes. So it's been a while since I've made a video. I've been busy with life and kids and all of that jazz. And really, I've kind of been focused on, so I had started making jewelry like way back when, and then I started a business called Iris Madison, shortly after my dad passed in 2020. So it might have been like 2021 or something like that that I started a business. And I really only sold to like my mom and my mother-in-law and like just a few people like that. And which they were some repeat customers, so I appreciated that. But that was about it. And so it kind of fell by the wayside. And when I started teaching, there was just so much going on with that and like planning and all of that that I rarely got to kind of create any jewelry or do anything. Maybe if I did anything, it would just be like, oh, I want to wear this outfit today and I want something to match it. So let me make something really quick. Um, so yeah, so that's been that. But we went to, and so I'd kind of just been doing like we have taxes and stuff, like business taxes, and I suck at all of the things having to do business. And so I would every time I would do those, it'd be like a zero because I wouldn't put any effort into it. And I had a website and then it got like deleted and I couldn't get it back. And so it just was what it was. So anyway, so it was just kind of there. Well, we went in January to Disney World. And when we went, I was telling my husband because usually we just kind of like do the rides and we go from like point A to point B. And I was telling him like this time I really wanted to kind of like when we went to Epcot, kind of take my time, look through the stores, look through the shops, get some like cute stuff. And I knew that I was excited for like the Morocco area because I knew that in the past that they'd had some really cool jewelry. And so I really wanted to get some pieces from there. But when I went, we searched all over in the area and we couldn't find anything. So then when we went to Epcot, I was looking again for jewelry and I did find this really cool guy who did made some beautiful statement pieces in like the Africa area. Um, but by that time I had already like spent all my money. And so I was like, next time. Um, but it kind of like energized me to just say like, okay, well, I couldn't find what I wanted, but I can make it. So I decided to come home and start creating some pieces. I just kind of like looked on Google and like typed in like Morocco or different places like that and pulled up different necklaces and then sort of just used those as like my example to kind of go off of and then take it however I want. So that was kind of what got me restarted on it. And so I started making um, some necklaces. And then I was talking to some friends and we were talking about, I was saying how like I had thought about getting back into my jewelry business. And, my daughter, bless her. My oldest daughter, she is so sweet and so supportive. And whenever, like with my jewelry, the first time that I got into it and like I had to sell, I sold a piece and I like mailed it. Like she was so excited for me, so proud of me and all of that kind of stuff. And so getting back into it, I could really tell that like she was excited about it. And, so so I started making jewelry again and one of my friends was like, "Okay, well, why don't you start your business back up again? Why don't you start your website, get that fixed and do all of that?" So I was like, why not? So I went ahead and I rebuilt my website and kept making necklaces and all that stuff. And I'm just not a very good like self-promoter because that's just I don't like to push myself onto people. Um, but I went ahead and I did sign up for a market, so like just a farmer's market. And it was gonna be so here, obviously. And and I was kind of nervous for it. So the last like few weeks, I've been in like deep prep mode. And so what that meant was like watching all the YouTubes on every like farmer's market and jewelry selling and like all of that stuff. I don't know what that hair is doing. And creating, like you might be able to see back there, like creating different like displays and all that kind of stuff so that I could not only have like things on my tables, but have that like vertical visual or whatever, so it pulls people in more. So I've been prepping that. I got my sign, I got my business cards, I restarted, like I said, my website, and got all the things I needed, and was just in like this full like prep mode of, because in my head, like sometimes I put too much weight on things, and here I did it too, because in my head I was kind of like, this market will determine whether or not this is something sustainable for me to do as like a career. And so that's kind of the weight I was putting onto it, is that if it failed, I failed. If it like did well, then I could do this. And so that's kind of like my husband, he kept trying to like pull that back and kind of say like, no, don't put all that weight on it, that this one is just where you're going to find out. He's like, you're going to go, you'll see what it's like to set up. You've never set up your tent before, you've never sold. It was my first time using like the little like commerce like tap thing and all that kind of stuff, so there was so much that I had to like learn. And so yeah, so I was just, but I was still like kind of panicking a little bit. And I would have like moments where I would kind of like get overwhelmed by thinking about like what could possibly happen or how setup's going to go or all of that kind of stuff. Um, so anyways, we got there to the marketplace, and it was my mom came down, and so it was her, my oldest, and me who would like set everything up. And it went well setting it up. I still like looking back now, and like when I see photos, I'm like, okay, I would change this or do this differently. But for the first time, it really went pretty well. And but I didn't sell anything. And in my head, like I kept telling myself, like, it cost $40 for a booth. And I was like, okay, if I sold like one pair of earrings, I could make that back. If I sold like two pairs of earrings, like really, I think I went into it kind of like, okay, I don't think I'm going to sell any of my necklaces because I know that they're a little bit more expensive. And maybe people aren't coming here, coming to look for like this big statement piece. But that's why I was really focused on trying to make lots of earrings, because I wanted to have, according to my YouTubes, a wide range of prices. So, I could draw in a whole bunch of people. And so that's kind of what I did. I focused on making like some smaller earrings and some larger ones and just kind of played around with that, made a few bracelets. And, um, and yeah, so I was just doing that and getting my website back up. And I feel like there was more to that. I don't know. I had to look at my jewelry to see if I could remember what I was going to say. Um, so yeah, I was just really focused on trying to make as many pieces as I could. Um, so all of my jewelry is upcycled. Um, I find a lot of, I love going to thrift stores. My mom gives me a bunch of jewelry that she used to have. I got a bunch of beads and jewelry from my husband's grandma in the past. And so I just kind of use all of that and I kind of tear it all apart, break it down to its parts, and try to reuse everything except which can't be reused. Um, and I just kind of mold that with some of the pieces that I found, or different, sorry, there was a fly, or a different like beads. Goodness gracious, my brain just blinked. Okay. So, anyways, so yeah, so my stuff is upcycled and one of a kind. So I only make one of each thing. And, so if I use the beads and I use the chain or whatever it is, like if someone purchases it, they can guarantee that they're the only person that has it. Um, Okay, so we went to the market, and it was a nice day, although I will say after we got set up, the clouds were looking a little iffy, and it did start downpouring. So it downpoured for maybe I don't know, 30 minutes or so. Um, which wasn't bad. We just kind of hung out under the tent and whatever. Well, So then when like people did start, like once the rain kind of cleared up and people started to move and come through, I think partially it was because it was my first event. And so I didn't really know anybody. I didn't really know what to expect or anything like that. I had planned to, but I didn't go to check out the market previously to kind of see like, okay, what are some of the things that are being sold here and what are some price points and different things like that. So a lot of that was just like figure it out day of. And so I had, I think, maybe two or three people come into my booth. Um, and we made some changes at first, like instead of having my tables back so far, we decided to like move them up so that people could kind of see them a little easier. So those are just things that I would play with. But I didn't make any sales and I didn't really like talk to anybody exactly, like the few people that came in. But again, I don't like pushing myself on other people. So I don't want to be like, hey, all of this is upcycled and, blah, 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 whatever. So that was just so I did that. And after like towards the end of it, so we all know with autism and ADHD, there are some like rejection sensitivities and, different things like that. So yeah, towards the end, I did get a little like emotional. No one else knew, but I knew that I kind of got a little upset. I think just because I had put so much weight onto this market and, in determining kind of like my future. But and since I didn't sell anything, then I felt like I had failed and that like I was a failure. And so I was talking to my husband and he was just like, that's not true. He's like, I'm so proud of you for getting out there and for doing this. And he's like, he is an animator and so he creates art. And he's like, I was thinking maybe I should do this and get my stuff out for my art and da da da. And so we talked about how we could like both have tents next to each other and just different stuff like that. And so he's really good about um, helping me get out of my own way because he knows that I have this problem with sometimes like putting way too much onto myself. Um, so so the thing went well. We had like I said, my mom came into town, and then the next day was Mother's Day. And so that was one other reason where I was like, oh, maybe I'll make some sales because people will want to buy stuff for their mother. And I even made like a little, just to kind of draw people in. Um, and I have kids, so I thought it would be fun. But I made like a little station where I have so many beads that are just like little plastic kid beads and pony beads and different things like that. And so I just made one little table set up, and it was where kids could make a free bracelet or a free keychain, and just kind of like, so there were like the letters for their names and just different things like that. So my older sister, she came and her family came. And so they made some keychains and they were like the only ones doing anything. Um, and so I got visited by them. Before my mom left for the weekend, she did want to purchase a pair of my earrings. So she did that. So I made one sell. Um, but but yeah, so when we got back to the house, we had decided we were just gonna kind of like chill out. And my sister, they were staying at a hotel, but they were visiting and stuff here. They are allowed to stay here, but we have two cats and a dog, and they have allergies. And so they have most recently, since we got our dog, kind of found that they would rather stay in a hotel, which I get. I feel bad for, but I get. Um, so, anyways, oh yeah. So we were back at the house. And so this is just an example to show you how I was talking about how I like run myself like ragged. So, so because I had put all that pressure on myself and because I'd been kind of hyper focusing on all of the things I needed for this market and my all of my jewelry and just really trying to get on top of my stuff, that I was pushing myself more than I ever realized that I am. And then we were cooking dinner. So it was just because we had everyone here. I was like, we'll just do spaghetti, easy peasy. And so I started making the spaghetti. But as I sat there, I all of a sudden just started feeling like kind of weird and like standing in the kitchen. And it was one of those where, like your sugar kind of can drop a little bit. And so you start feeling a little shaky and just eh. And so that's kind of what I thought it was. So I was like, okay. So I went and I saw like a bag of chips. I was like, maybe just something salty really quick. Maybe I just need to eat something. So I like ate some chips. That wasn't fixing it. So then I was like, okay, maybe I just need sugar. So I saw like these candies like on our counter, and so I just like grabbed and popped a few of those in, hoping that that would help, and it didn't. And so then I poured myself some cranberry juice because I was like, okay, maybe I need like some juice with like some sugars in it. And so that's what I did. And so I thought I was okay. Like I still was feeling kind of eh, but I was just trying to push through because I knew, so there are a few reasons because we had family in town because I was, my head, like I put whatever, because we had family in town, because I was trying not to, because I was letting them kind of like relax and I didn't want to be like, hey guys, like come do cook dinner instead of me. And then my husband was getting ready. He was leaving the next morning for a work trip. And so I knew he was like super busy. So even though I was feeling weird, like I felt odd, like being like, hey, James, come cook dinner. I know you're trying to pack. Um, so anyway, so I was just trying to push through, and my kitchen was kind of a mess because the same day that we had company coming, we also found that our garbage disposal was broken, and so it had been leaking and puddling underneath of our sink, and we didn't realize it. And so he had to rip all that stuff out. And so anyway, so our kitchen was kind of a mess, and and of course it happens right when like people are coming to visit. So anyway, so we had So our kitchen was a mess. So I was trying to clean, like I needed to like wash since I was making spaghetti, like the colander. So I needed to wash that really quick. And so I was trying to do all these little things. That way, if I had to like kind of pass off the cooking to someone else, like I had everything prepped for them. And it wasn't just like, all right, go figure it out, guys. So anyway, so I was cooking and then all of a sudden I just felt really weird. Like I got super lightheaded, super dizzy. I started like just sweating a lot. And so I just knew I had to like step away. And so, everyone else was still like in the kitchen area. And so I kind of walked over. I was like, can someone else take over for a second? Like, I just need to sit down for a minute. And I sat down and I was just not feeling good. Um, I can't even explain kind of like the way I was feeling, but um, I felt like I was going to throw up, but I also felt like I needed to lay down, but I needed to sit up. I needed to have my eyes closed, like not talk to anyone. Like I was just like in this zone. And so my sister, my older sister, she's an OBGYN nurse. And so I was not having a baby, but she's good at this stuff. And so she was like, okay, just lay back. And so a part of me was kind of fighting that, like in my head, because I was like, oh no, that's going to make me even more nauseous if I lay down. But I was like, okay. And so I went ahead and did it. And then I don't know. I didn't black out or anything, but I don't really recall exactly what was happening around me. I just remember hearing noises and talking and all that kind of stuff. And then next thing I know, like I kind of woke up and opened my eyes and like my husband is right there kind of leaning over the chair. And so they were like, well, did you eat anything today? And I was like, well, I did have like some coffee and then I had gotten like a croissant from Starbucks, but because of like setup and all of that and just kind of like me being kind of in my head and all that kind of stuff, like eating was the very last thing on my mind. And then we ended up getting like some burgers a little bit later there at the market, but I had maybe like two bites and then I was good. Um, so to them, they all kind of thought that it was because I hadn't eaten, which I'm sure was part of it. But um, but then I was telling James later, I was like, okay, well, I think really I just pushed myself too much. And because I used to do this all the time where like I would push myself and then get sick, whether it be like in school when I'm studying for a test, like I would let's say I had a test that was 5 chapters, and then I would give myself like 5 days prior to the test to study so I could do a chapter per day. And that was just an easier way because if not, if I tried to do it sooner than that, then I would just like forget all of the material. And so I had to kind of do it this way. But that also meant there was like this intense like 5 days of like hyper focusing on everything that I need to do. And so that would always like wear my system down, where I would then all of a sudden, like after I'm done with my test, get sick. So, yeah, so I was laying down, then I was fine. I was still napping. Like I was tired the rest of the day. I think that just like that episode kind of like wore me out. Um, but and then so all of that went on, whatever, we hung out. And then the next day, my husband, he left, and like family decided they were all going back home. And so it was just me and the girls. And then I got sick. And I'm not surprised again because I run myself down. And with just so much stress. And so I was sick for a few days, just like coughing and bringing stuff up and just feeling in my head and just everything just wasn't feeling good. But it took a few days and then I kind of like, I mean, I've still got a little bit, I'm like getting it out of my system. But but so it's funny because I know I do that to myself. I've done it ever since I was like in college, where I will just like put my all into something and then it finishes and I like crash. And even things like I remember like when my husband would go away for like a TDY or something like that, like I would push, 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 push because it's like me and the girls and I got to do all the things. And then I would get sick. Or I remember one time he went away and like that's when I got shingles. And it's like my body has a really hard time dealing with stress. And even if I think I'm dealing with it okay, like it turns out I'm not. Okay. So, anyways, that was that. So that's kind of been where my focus has been recently, was just creating jewelry and doing all of that. I have another market on July 11th. And so I tried to give myself like a couple months in between because I was like, maybe I'll sell all my stuff and I have to like spend a couple months to refurbish everything. Um, but so that'll just give me time to kind of like, as I look at pictures, I'm like, okay, my setup was good, but I would change this or do this differently. And now that I've been through it once, hopefully like the next time I won't put as much on myself and I'll kind of just like be able to breathe. Yeah. So that's kind of where I have been recently, is just fully focused on my jewelry and getting that going. But now that I've got like my site up and I'm still working on stuff and I've got things like pretty organized, then I can still like work on that while making videos or doing other things that I want to do. And it won't be all consuming. But yeah, so I think that's it. We're just now in kind of like wind down time. Um, Summer is almost here, so my girls have like 2.5 weeks left or something of school, which is crazy. And then we will be doing another Disney trip, like right after school. So we're just doing a short, like 4 days or something, and I think only like 2 park days. It was like a special deal that we got or something because we normally wouldn't go like this back to back. But so that'll be fun. We'll go do that. And that's kind of like what we're planning for now or looking forward to. And then really like after that, like I am looking and I'm like, my summer is pretty open, which is nice because then I can just focus on jewelry and creating content and swimming and hanging out with my girls and all of that kind of stuff. So that has me excited.